You ready to spend a semester writing about music? I'm Jason Tugaw, and I love teaching this class. I'm a pretty big music fan. My husband's a singer, a lot of our friends are musicians. I am by no means a musician, but I am a writer, and music finds its way into my writing pretty often. On this wall behind me are a bunch of my musical heroes. This is Tracy Thorn. She's from a band called Everything But the Girl. She wrote a really great book about singers and singing that we'll read together this semester. This semester, we'll dig into a bunch of genres of music writing, including reviews, personal writing, artist profiles, infographics, and song diagrams. We'll experiment with a genre called the memoir mixtape, and you'll get the chance to play around with podcasting and some video production too. But first, let's dig into and maybe clear away a little controversy. At some point in the 1970s, a musician, probably angry about bad reviews or annoyed by some stupid writing, made the following statement: "Writing about music is like dancing about architecture." The quote became legend. It's been attributed to a bunch of musicians. People say it was Elvis Costello, or Thelonious Monk, or Laurie Anderson, or Frank Zappa. These artists all have two things in common. One, they're pretty intellectual artists who experimented with unorthodox sounds and made music that sounded pretty new for their time. And two, they did not say writing about music is like dancing about architecture. I mean, they might have repeated it in an interview or commented on it, but they did not originate it. It really doesn't matter who originated it or where it came from. What matters is that it circulates a lot. And behind it, there are some pretty interesting ideas, complicated ideas that we'll wrestle with throughout this whole semester.
Our course description begins with a quote from Ann Powers, a music writer you'll be getting to know well. We're reading one of her books, and she's going to be a guest on campus this semester on February 22nd. Save that date. In this conversation she has with another music critic named Carl Wilson, Powers says, "I know that on one level music is abstract, like a thought, as you say, but it's also like a feeling, a real sensual and emotional pull. Music can make you feel like a room without a roof. When that's happening, all the categories we build as thinkers recede, and whatever sound made it happen is glorious." Of course, Powers is right. Music is abstract, and it's about feeling. It's sensual, emotional. There's an irony in the fact that she uses writing to describe what writing can't quite capture, the feeling of music. She uses this metaphor like a room without a roof. Translating our musical experience into words is hard. Writing can never recreate music. That's not the point. What can it do? That's a question for the entirety of this semester. Robert Christgau is a legendary music critic. He wrote for The Village Voice for years, for decades really. Christgau has very strong feelings about the dancing like architecture metaphor. His first rebuttal is fairly straightforward and neutral. Writing about music is writing first. Okay. The second one is a lot harsher. Here goes. One of the many foolish things about the fools who compare writing about music to dancing about architecture is that dancing usually is about architecture. When bodies move in relation to a designed space, be it stage or ballroom or living room or gymnasium or agora or Congo Square, they comment on that space whether they mean to or not. Honestly, I don't think there's that much point in spending a lot of time on this controversy. You could go around and around and around arguing pros and cons. I'm not sure why Christgau gets quite so worked up. I think it's more interesting to dig into the ideas than it is to fight about whether it's true that dancing about architecture and writing about music are similar. I like what Australian writer Tiarni Mikas has to say about all this. Here goes. The problem with writing about music is like dancing about architecture, is that it roots music criticism in either music or writing, when music writing is actually rooted in the subjective response of the writer. Let me take a pause here to say that's you, that's me, we're the writers. Continue. Music criticism is never about the music or writing, but is always that barely graspable purgatory, the experience of the music. We all hear music differently. Biologically, none of us is built quite the same. The acoustics of our hearing varies. We bring our personal histories to any music we hear. We bring the histories of our cultures. We bring the influence of our friends and families, and a whole lot more. In a class like ours, I believe it would ruin the spirit if we spent our time judging each other's tastes or reactions to certain music. Maybe we'll joke about it sometimes, but more often, hopefully, we'll listen to music in new ways because of the different perspectives we all bring to it. In this course, we'll experiment with finding ways to channel all that into writing that makes meaning out of our musical experience, and our readings will help us do it. We'll read a bunch of shorter stuff. We're also going to read these 4 books together. Ann Powers' Good Booty, Love and Sex, Black and White, Body and Soul in American Music, kind of a cultural, political history of popular music in America. And then the beautiful book by Hanif Abdurraqib, Go Ahead in the Rain and Notes to a Tribe Called Quest. It's a love letter to a Tribe Called Quest, but it's also so much more. It's personal, it's cultural, it's political, and it's poetic. And then I mentioned Tracy Thorn earlier. We'll read her book Naked at the Albert Hall, The Inside Story of Singing. This is an expert singer kind of breaking down what singing means and using a whole bunch of singers to do it. And then we'll use this kind of guide edited by Mark Woodworth and Ali Jane Grosson called How to Write About Music. And it contains advice from all kinds of music writers in all kinds of genres and will help us all semester long. For most of our meetings, we're going to start with Record Club, which is really fun, in my opinion. One of us will play a song, the rest will listen in silence, then the person in charge will tell us something about what we heard, and the rest of us will chime in with any kind of comments or observations that we may have. And in addition to that, we will do a lot of reading each other's work, a lot of workshopping, we'll get to know each other's tastes and interests. Hopefully we'll have fun and learn a lot about how to write really well about popular music.
Zoom classes are weird. I'm here in a snowstorm in the Catskills at my house. You're wherever you are. We're going to come together on the screen and we're going to do our best to get to know each other and do some great work together. I want to introduce you to New Lady. If you've taken a class with me before, and some of you have, you know that I'm really into my chickens. Well, recently, New Lady was brought to us from Queens. Somebody abandoned her at the Queens Farm Museum, and we adopted her. So it's a little connection between Queens and the Catskills. New Lady. And she's settling in pretty nicely. Oh, okay.